May alam ka ba dun sa legal basis of international law?
Ah, di ba yun yung contemporary world assignment natin? Alam ko lang batas yan eh. Pero ang ganda lang yung alam ko.
Ganun ba? Pa-assignment kasi, sir. Di ko alam kung saan nakukuha ng sagot eh.
Alam ko na pre, manood na lang tayo ng YouTube. May kilala akong makakatulong sa atin.
Sige, tara na. Saan dito, pre? Ito ba contemporary world tutor?
Tama. Sigurado ako marami tayong matututunan dito.
Good day everyone, welcome to my channel and I'm your contemporary world tutor. Don't forget to like, share, comment and hit that subscribe button. Now let's get started. Today I'll be talking about the legal basis of international law, which is mainly found in Article 38 of 1 of the Statute of International Court of Justice. This article basically tells us where international law comes from and it lists four main sources. The first one is international conventions or treaties. These are agreements between states, and once a country signs and ratifies a treaty, it becomes legally binding, like a contract. A guiding rule here is pacta sunt servanda, which means agreements must be kept. Examples of important treaties include United Nations Charter and Geneva Conventions. The second source is international customary law. This develops when countries consistently follow a certain practice because they believe it's legally required. So it's not just a habit, it comes with a sense of legal obligation. What's interesting is that even if a state didn't sign anything, customary law can still bind them. Examples are diplomatic immunity, prohibition of genocide, and the idea of freedom on the high seas. The third source is general principles law. These are principles that most legal systems around the world recognize. They act as a gap filler when treaties or customs don't cover a specific issue. Examples include principles like good faith, equity, and res judicata. The last one is judicial decisions and scholarly writings. These are considered subsidiary sources, meaning they don't create law directly but help explain and interpret it. For example, decisions made by the International Court of Justice or the writings of famous scholars help clarify how international law should be applied.
Yawa, pre ba't naka-ads?
Hi everyone, I'm Puppety, your favorite puppet. Today, we were talking about the beyond basis of international law Article 38. We already talked about the general principles of the Article 38 international law. But guess what? International law has expanded and added several rules. So, let's check them out. First, United Nations Charter. Think of it as a world's constitution. It tells countries how to behave so there is a peace. The Security Council can make a binding decision. Meanwhile, the General Assembly makes resolutions that aren't binding, but they guide how countries act. Next is soft law. It is a non-binding rules or guidelines such as declaration of codes that influences behavior without carrying formal legal forces. For example, this is the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. It is considered as soft law as it sets a global norms without being legally enforceable like a treaty. Now, here comes the strongest rules of all. Peremptory norms or jus cogens. These are the rules that no country can never break. No excuses. It includes the no slavery, no torture, no genocide, and no wars aggression, and many more that no one should ever break. Finally, we've got obligación erga omnes. That's a Latin, but it simply means that duty is owed to everyone. For example, all states must respect people's right to self-determination and avoid acts of aggression. These aren't just promises between two countries. They are our responsibilities for the entire world.
Dami rin palang matututunan sa ads, no?
Kaya nga eh. Hindi lang pala treaties, customs at general principles na nandito.
Oo nga eh. Meron palang UN Charter, soft law, peremptory norms, obligation erga omnes. Haba nun.
Oo, upang patibayin at mas maging patas sa international law.
Para matulungan at mapanatili natin yung kapayapaan sa mga bansa.
Tuloy na natin to. Gusto ko pang matuto eh.
Tara, ay gagi. Anyari?
We interrupt this video with breaking news from TCW News. The question at the center of today's report: why is international law legitimate? And why should states adhere to it? Experts point out 4 major theories. Let's dive into the detail. Miss Aubrey?
First up, consent theory. According to this view, states are bound only when they agree, especially through treaties. It's simple. No consent, no obligation. International law here works just like a contract.
But breaking now, natural law theory takes on a different approach. It argues that certain rules, like banning slavery and genocide, are valid, even without consent. Why? Because they came from universal moral principle that no states can deny. Miss Aubrey?
Next, we have positivism. This theory insists that international law is valid only when it's based on what states actually do, their treaties, agreements, and consistent practices. In other words, law comes from state action, not abstract ideals.
And finally, constitutionalism. This perspective views the UN Charter as the world's constitution, creating a legal order for the entire international community. And it's not just about individual agreements, it's about global system.
That is all for our breaking news. Again, this is TCW News. Hope you learned a lot during that short time.
Yung palang laman ng international law. Pero di ko naman sila masisisi. Para naman sa mamamayan nito.
Tama. Para mas maintindihan at mapanatili natin yung kapayapaan ng isang bansa.
Tara, tuloyin natin. Patapos na rin naman to eh.
Since most part of the legal basis of the international law has already been discussed, let's move on to the challenges faced by the international law and legal basis. Despite having a strong framework, not everything is perfect and may encounter some challenges. In our case, challenges such as lack of centralized enforcement. Countries usually obey because they don't want to get a bad reputation, want other countries to cooperate with them, or rely on collective pressure. Example is, if one country breaks a trade rule, it doesn't automatically get punished. It depends on how other countries respond to it. Second is fragmentation. Sometimes these rules overlap or conflict, making it harder for countries to follow them all at once. A good example is if a country might want to protect the environment but also has a trade agreement that allows harmful practices. The third is power politics. Some countries are more powerful and can decide which rules to follow and which to ignore, while smaller countries have to obey more strictly. This makes it harder to treat all countries equally under international law. A good example is dito sa Pilipinas. Pag mahirap ka, nagnakaw ka, kulong agad. Kasi nga, mahirap ka. Pero, pag yung iba dyan, bilyon-bilyon yung ninanakaw, nasa bahay pa rin. Bakit kaya? Lastly is emerging actors. This can help create a better law, but it also makes the system more complicated because these actors aren't always directly accountable like countries are. And that is all for the whole of international legal basis of international law. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and hit that subscribe button. Again, I'm your contemporary world tutor, and I hope you learned a lot during this short video.
Tapos rin.
Dami naman nun.
Ano na muna tungkol na to? Sulat ko na lang muna, baka makalimutan ko pa.
Gege. Ang dami rin natin natutunan eh. Hilingin na lang talaga natin hindi malimutan. Sige, bye-bye.
Pre, bye-bye.